right, Chris. So let's go right into tonight's topic number one, shall we?
Sure, let's do it.
The Big Ten released their 2024 and 2025 league schedules this week.
Mhm.
Chris, number one question. We'll break this up into several different topics here
Sure.
for all of you. We'll get into the whole Penn State thing, UCLA and USC thing. But first, did they get it right, Chris?
Well, as somebody who likes to attend Buckeye home games, I kind of feel like most of our home games stink. I'm just saying. No, I'm just saying. I wish we'd get a little more of the upper echelon in there. You know, it seems like we've got a lot of weak opponents at home in that first round or that first schedule.
In 2024.
2024, yeah. Um,
Let me go through that real fast. Yeah, 2024, 5 home games: Illinois, Iowa, Team Up North, Northwestern, Rutgers. Oh yeah, you're right.
yeah, that's not very good talent for us to go pay $100 a seat for to go sit down at the stadium.
2025 might be even weaker. Indiana, Maryland, Nebraska, USC. You get USC though.
I think everybody wants to see USC Ohio State. I really do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can only imagine what they gave that team up north if they gave that to us.
Well, I
Because
can tell
the
you what
Big
they
Ten,
gave them.
the Big Ten likes. I know, but the Big Ten likes to cupcake that team up north. So
Not necessarily. 2024's the home games for the team up north are Maryland, Michigan State, Minnesota, UCLA, Wisconsin. Their away games are in the shoe, Illinois, Rutgers, USC. They go to the shoe and to the Coliseum next year on the road.
now on the road, that's brutal.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, their home schedule that's pretty. I mean, you got what Wisconsin in there. I mean, and maybe Maryland, but I don't know. I'm
Their
thinking
home
Wisconsin's their only tough one they got that year.
their home games in 2025 are Northwestern, us, Penn State, Purdue. Their away games are Indiana, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan State, Nebraska.
Well, those away games will be easy for them that year. So
hmm
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to dive into here. So let's just start with this, Chris. Did they get it right? Yes or no, and why? I mean, they went with a rotating schedule. Some teams got to keep
they did,
rivals, others didn't.
and I thought that was interesting how teams could. It seemed like select how many rivals they wanted to have.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it says a lot that Ohio State only chose to have the one rivalry.
Well, that's not okay. So let's back it up. You had to apply.
Correct.
Both schools had to apply to the Big Ten that they wanted that a particular rivalry.
Yeah.
If both schools requested it, then they took it into account.
Right.
And at the end of the day, they came away with saying they were only going to keep historical rivalries, not, and the word that Gene Smith said was competitive rivalries, which I found that verbiage to be incredibly interesting.
Yeah. Because I'll tell you what. Let's face it. Until the last 2 years, Penn State for the better part of the last decade has been our rival
Okay, yeah.
as
We're
far as
jump
competitive rivalry.
we're jumping the gun. I want to get there in just a minute.
But
But did they do it right? Yes or no?
I think only time's going to tell, Eric. I don't think we can say yes or no right now. To, to me, I mean, I wish we would have had some teams locked in as a regular home, a regular game every year. But I'm willing to give it a shot. How about that? I'm willing to give it
Okay.
a shot. I and again, when we get into addressing the individual teams, I think I'll have more to say on it then.
Okay. All right. I'm going to say that they didn't get it right. And here's why. I don't like when one school is given something and another school is not. For
Yeah.
instance, Iowa has 3 protected
Yes.
rivalries.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you say we're going to protect 2 rivalries for every school?
Correct.
or we're only going to protect one rivalry for every school.
which honestly is how it probably should be.
I mean, it makes zero sense to me that Iowa gets three protected rivalries: Minnesota,
Right.
Wisconsin, Nebraska. Every single year, they're going to play a home and away with those schools every single year. Where Ohio State only gets one, the team up north. The team up north gets Ohio State and Michigan State every single year. Penn State gets nobody.
Mm.
It doesn't make any sense.
You know, if I'm a Penn State fan, I'm not sure if I'm more upset about that or maybe relieved. Can you imagine being a Penn State team that somehow comes out of a year not facing Ohio State or Michigan?
Okay, we're jumping the gun again. I know we want to get there, so let's just go there, okay? Let's just go there. Here we go. Let's throw this up here for everybody. This was a poll that we put out there for everybody on whether you felt that now that Penn State and Ohio State will not play each other every year, your feeling about the news was happy they aren't really a rival. 2% said, yeah. Mad, that was our second best rival. That was a lot more, 51, or excuse me, 41. 57% said they were indifferent about it because USC and Penn State every other year feels about right. Now, Chris, give me your Penn State take.
If I am a Penn State fan, I'm looking at this like a gift almost. The Big Ten is going to somewhere along the way flop it up, and they're going to have a year where Penn State doesn't see Ohio State or Michigan. And that is like almost a walk to at least the conference championship game if they're left with just the rest of the division. I mean, I really believe it is. Myself, as an Ohio State fan, I did like the competitive rivalry with Penn State, especially when we didn't have that. When that team up north wasn't strong, Eric, I feel that Penn State gave legitimacy to us when there was a question of strength of schedule. And I feel they were like Gene Smith said, a great competitive rival. Um, yeah, I mean it always gave you a second game to worry about. It really did. And in many cases, it was the only game we had to worry about each year for quite some time until the last couple of years. So I don't like us not seeing Penn State. That's my take on it as an Ohio State fan. But as a Penn State fan, you got to look at the positive. Yeah, I understand that you guys always enjoyed a good game against Ohio State, win or lose. I understand that it may have been very similar for them. We gave their schedule credibility as well. You lose a close game to Ohio State, who may be ranked one, two, three in the nation at the time. It gives credibility to you if you've had a soft schedule the rest of the way through the year. But I truly believe that there's going to be a time, and maybe more than once, where they don't see Ohio State and Michigan on the schedule. And like I said, they should consider that a free gift and a possible walk to the conference championship game.
I don't know that the schedule makers will ever make it to where they never play that they don't play both of
Should they
us.
know? They should play one or the other every year. They
Sure.
should. Will they? I don't know. Our schedule makers sometimes just leave me shaking my head, Eric.
I I really sometimes think they just keep hitting the auto generate button until they find something that works for them.
Yeah.
It really doesn't make sense much. Larry Daniels asks a question here. How do we stand with Wisconsin for the 2 years? So if we travel to Happy Valley, then the third year before we see them at home. I'm not liking this layout. Yeah, there's some interesting quirks with this. Now, what they said was you should see every team at least once in a 2 year span. And then the next time you see them again, you would go reciprocate. You would go to their house if they came to yours, because the idea is that at least one time in every 4 year span, you will have played in a Big Ten stadium.
Right.
every Big Ten stadium. So hypothetically, if you're a freshman, you will have played at least one road game in every Big Ten school by the time you graduate as a senior. That's the idea behind it. And in order for them to make that possible, given the fact that Iowa has three protected rivalries, they said they had to make some schools with lesser protected rivalries to make that possible, which means that again, Ohio State and Penn State fell on the sword for the Big Ten.
Mhm.
Why? Why?
I don't
Now,
know, Eric, because uh, my personal feeling is Ohio State and given the last 2 years, that team up north should have the right to dictate to the Big Ten exactly what they're going to do. I mean, outside of Ohio State and Michigan, who's been there the last 20 years?
mhm. Now, USC is going to add a little bit more legitimacy to
They
that, but
do.
my point is still that when you look at the overall schedule on this thing and how they did it, it just I don't see the excitement outside of playing the new guys.
And
especially
honestly,
especially when you're not going to play what I feel is your second biggest rival in Penn State. And you can call it a competitive rivalry all you want. That rivalry goes all the way back to the Ohio Penn State High School All-Star game
yeah,
that was played back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Those two states were always recruiting against one another. Joe Paterno, Earl Bruce, John Cooper, they all always recruiting against one another for the Pennsylvania Ohio kids.
yeah,
It is a regional rivalry. Just because they weren't in the Big Ten for 100 plus years doesn't take away the fact that in the past 30 years, that has been a doggone good rivalry, and they've had our number at times. In the 90s, it went back and forth, man. I remember Kajana Carter running all
yep,
over us, right? Those were some great games. And yeah, the Jerry Sandusky thing set them back a little bit. But up until the last couple years, while the team up north couldn't get their act together, Penn State was indeed our best opponent every single year. And they gave us their very best game every single year. They beat us that one time, and they took us to overtime multiple times.
yep. And I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to playing the new guys, and maybe we'll have a budding rivalry with USC or you know, there's the tie with UCLA and Kelly out there at UCLA, and but you know what? This is my thing as far as the West teams go, and I know this is a little bit off topic here. I don't know that I like going out and playing a home game or a away game in the Rose Bowl.
Really?
And this is why, Eric. We've talked for so long about how the bowl games that aren't part of the CPS just seem to be less and less mattering, or mattering less and less. And still, my argument is the Rose Bowl isn't what it once was if it's not a part of the CPS.
It's going to be every year moving
It,
forward.
it
So
will be, but I mean, to this point, it's lost some of its shine. I think that it almost loses even more of that shine when you're playing regular Big Ten games in there.
hmm
It just doesn't. It's not going to feel the same if you go out there to play in the Rose Bowl.
hmm
So,
This is a great point right here, Larry. Hard to
yep,
develop a rivalry if you play every other year. Bingo, bingo.
yeah,
That's exactly right. And he brings up another good point with Coach Fickle at Wisconsin. I saw that as an up and coming rivalry.
yeah.
Ask Tressel who his biggest rival was.
Oh, Michigan State when D'Antonio went up there.
No, that wasn't Tressel. That was Urban.
Oh, that was Urban. Yeah, yeah. You're right.
Tressel was
Tressel was,
Wisconsin.
was Wisconsin. Yeah,
Yeah. So that absolutely could be a huge rivalry moving forward if you were going to play them every year, but you're
yeah.
not. So it's really hard to develop that rivalry momentum. Donald Hoffer the second asks a great question. What does Iowa bring to the Big Ten for them to have three potential rivalries? All I hear is crickets on that question.
The most potent or maybe impotent offense you've ever seen.
I don't understand this. No one has been able
No.
to answer this question. What? Why? Just why? Oh, those are our big rivals. 3 of them? Like, you play Nebraska on the day after Thanksgiving on Friday every year. That's cool. Okay, maybe I'll give you one more.
Well, you know what it is.
Wisconsin, but Minnesota.
You know what it is, Eric. It's simply this: Kirk Ferentz played, golf with all the grandparents of these people who are making these decisions now. So
Yeah,
yeah,
he's been there a while, right?
been there a while.
I guess you throw him a bone when you've been there that long.